The drive-thru speaker crackles like it always does. Half the menu board lights are dead, and you order the same thing you've ordered since college. Number 4 combo, no tomato. A high C if they have it, Sprite if they don't. $6.49. You pull forward, and your phone buzzes in the cup holder, face up, and for exactly 1 second you see it. A portfolio notification. Green. The kind of green that doesn't belong in a drive-thru. Single-day gain. $47,000. The car behind you honks. You turn the phone face down on the passenger seat, and you pull forward, and you say thank you to the window, and you take your bag, and you drive. You don't tell anyone. Not because you planned it that way, not because you sat down one day and decided that silence was a strategy. It just happened the way most permanent things happen. Slowly, without ceremony, in the space between one ordinary Tuesday and the next. You were 26 when your brokerage account crossed 6 figures. $114,000. You remember the number because you were sitting on the floor of your apartment, laptop on the coffee table, a bowl of ramen going cold beside you, and the number just sat there on the screen, like it had always been there, like it wasn't remarkable, like it didn't represent more money than anyone in your family had ever held at one time. You almost texted Keisha. You opened the thread. You typed 3 words, guess what happened? And then you deleted them, letter by letter, and you set the phone down and you ate the ramen, and that was the first time you chose quiet.
By 250,000, the distance isn't financial. It's linguistic.
The words don't work the same way anymore. Your coworker Curtis leans against the break room counter and talks about his crypto portfolio like he's discovered gravity. He uses words like generational and leverage and play the long game. And he has $11,000 in savings. And you know this because he told you once, after 2 beers at a happy hour, he insisted on splitting evenly. You nod. You say, that's smart. You sip your water. Your cousin Rosa calls on a Sunday and talks for 40 minutes about her landlord raising rent by $200 and how she might have to pick up a weekend shift. And you listen, and you make the right sounds in the right places, and you don't say anything. Because what would you say? You have $382,000 in a brokerage account and a Roth IRA that maxes itself out automatically on January 2nd of every year. And you are sitting on your couch in an apartment that costs $1,100 a month because you never moved. Your mother Donna takes you to dinner on your birthday, a place she likes, white tablecloths, the kind of restaurant where she reads the prices silently before she orders. The check comes, and she reaches for it, and you reach for it, and she gives you the look, the one that says, I'm your mother and I'm paying. And you let her. You let her pay $68 for your birthday dinner, and you don't say anything about the $400,000 that sits 2 taps away on your phone, face down on the table. Because Donna doesn't need to know. Donna would worry. Donna would ask where it came from. Donna would look at you differently, and you cannot afford that, not at any price. You're fine. That's what you tell everyone. How are you? You're fine.
$500,000 comes on a Wednesday in March. You are at the Thai restaurant, the one with 8 tables and vinyl booths with tape on the seats and a TV in the corner playing a channel nobody can identify. And Keisha is across from you, splitting the pad see ew the way she always does, fork in the left hand, no knife, talking about a coworker who microwaves fish in the break room every single day. And you almost tell her. The words are right there. They're sitting at the back of your teeth like a held breath. You want to say it so badly your chest aches. You want to say, Keisha, I have $500,000. You want to say, I haven't told anyone. You want to say, I don't know why I'm scared, but I'm scared and I need someone to know. But Keisha puts her fork down and she looks at you and she says, "You good? You got quiet." And you say, "Yeah, I'm just tired." And the moment passes the way a wave passes. It pulls back and the sand looks exactly the same as before, and nobody knows it was ever there. You walk to your car afterward and you sit in the driver's seat for 7 minutes with the engine off. You hold the steering wheel with both hands and you breathe. Your phone buzzes. Another notification. You don't look at it. You drive home in silence, and the silence is so loud it hums. 1,000,000. You are a millionaire, and nobody in your life knows. Not your mother, not Keisha, not the woman at the dry cleaner who calls you honey, not Curtis, who is now day trading on his lunch break and losing money he doesn't have and telling you about it like he's winning. Not your landlord, who still sends you a lease renewal every 12 months with a $40 increase, and you sign it and you mail it back, and you keep living in the same $1,100 apartment because leaving would raise questions. You sit in meetings at work. You listen to your manager talk about performance reviews and quarterly targets and the new PTO policy, and you nod and you take notes. And you are worth more than everyone in the room combined, and you cannot say it. You cannot even think it too loudly, because the thought feels like a betrayal of something you can't name. Rosa calls. She needs $800, car transmission. She says she'll pay you back by the end of the month, and you both know she won't. And you say, "Of course, I had some saved up." And you Venmo her the money, and she sends a heart emoji. And she never mentions it again. Not once. Not even a text. And you don't bring it up either, because bringing it up would mean explaining how $800 isn't a sacrifice for you anymore. It's a rounding error. And that sentence would end something between you that you're not ready to lose. Derek takes you to dinner. He's new, 3 dates in, and he insists on paying, and his hand hovers over the check, the way men's hands hover over checks when paying is a performance. He takes you to a place with cloth napkins and a $32 entree, and afterward he says, "I know a great spot next time." And you suggest a Japanese place you've been wanting to try, and he goes quiet. And you realize the omakase tasting menu is $180 a person, and he can't afford it. And you can't say how you know, so you say, "Or whatever, I'm easy." He picks a burger place. You go to the burger place. You eat a $12 burger, and you are worth $1.1 million. And you say, "This is great." And you mean none of it and all of it at the same time. How are you? You're fine. 2 million comes and the tests come with it. Except nobody knows they're testing you and you can't tell them they're failing. Janelle, the woman who owns the salon 3 blocks from your apartment, stops you on the sidewalk one Saturday. She's been talking about expanding for a year. A second chair, maybe a third, maybe a storefront with actual signage instead of the vinyl letters peeling off the window. She asks if you'd want to invest. The way she says it, casual, like she's offering you a piece of gum, tells you she sees you as someone with maybe a little extra, maybe a good saver, maybe the kind of person who has 3 months of emergency fund. She doesn't know. She doesn't know that you could buy her entire building and the one next to it and still have more than she'll earn in her lifetime. You say you'll think about it. You never bring it up again. She doesn't either. Curtis asks you to co-sign a lease on a car. A BMW, used, $62,000. And he says he just needs the credit boost and he'd never let it go to collections. And you look at him and you see every version of this conversation you've ever been warned about. And you say, "I don't think I can do that. I'm sorry." And he says, "No worries, just thought I'd ask."
And things are different between you after that. Not broken, just different. A half-degree cooler, like a room where someone opened a window you can't see. You sit in Whitfield's office on a Thursday afternoon. He calls you Miss. He always calls you Miss. His desk is dark wood, and there are papers and folders, and his office smells like old leather and the ink from a fountain pen he uses for signatures. He's the only person who knows. Not the whole number. Even Whitfield sees what you show him, account by account, trust by trust. But he knows enough. He knows the shape of it. And when he talks to you like you're real. Not the version of you that splits the pad CU. Not the version that wears the same jacket from 3 years ago. The real one. The one with $2.4 million and a tax obligation that requires its own calendar. You leave his office and you stand on the sidewalk and you breathe. And for a moment, you feel light, like something has been lifted. And then your phone rings and it's Donna asking if you've eaten, and the weight comes back and you say, "Yeah, Ma, I'm fine."
5 million. You buy a building, not a house, a building, a 4-unit walk-up in a neighborhood you used to take the bus through. And you buy it through an LLC that Whitfield set up, and your name is nowhere on anything that a neighbor could Google. And the tenants pay rent to an entity called Stillwater Holdings, and they will never know that the woman who orders the number 4 combo at the drive-thru is also their landlord. You pay off Donna's mortgage. You don't tell her you paid off her mortgage. You create a paper trail, a program, a grant, something from the county, something for long-term homeowners over 60, and you have Whitfield draft a letter on letterhead that doesn't exist for an organization that doesn't exist. And Donna calls you crying and says, "Baby, you won't believe this. The house is paid off, the whole thing. They sent me a letter." And your throat closes and you say, "That's amazing, Ma. You deserve it." And she says, "God is good." And you say, "He is." And you hang up and you sit on your kitchen floor and you cry. Not because you're sad, because you just gave your mother the greatest gift of her life, and she'll never know it came from you. And that's exactly how it has to be. Because if Donna knew, she'd give it back. She'd give it back and she'd worry, and she'd look at you with that look, the one that says, "Who are you? What happened to my daughter?" And you can't survive that look. Not from her. Not from Donna. You meet Lena at a private banking event, one of those rooms with no signage on the door and water in glass bottles, and people who say portfolio, the way normal people say weekend. Lena is tall, quiet, wears a watch that costs more than most cars, but you'd never know unless you knew. She doesn't ask what you do. You don't ask what she does. You talk about a documentary you both watched. You exchange numbers. You start texting. She becomes the friend you exhale around, the one person where you don't have to calculate what you're allowed to say. Keisha sits across from you at the Thai restaurant. Same booth, same wobbling table. The pendant lamp above buzzes the way it always has. She puts her fork down and she looks at you and she says, "You seem different lately." And the words sit there between the plates like a third person at the table. And you say, "I'm just tired." And Keisha nods, and she doesn't push. She never pushes. That's why you love her. That's why it hurts. 8 million. 10. The numbers stop feeling like numbers. They feel like weather, something that exists around you, constant, ambient, impossible to explain to someone standing in a different climate. You are in a parking garage, underground. The monthly rate is $480, which is more than your first apartment's rent. And your car is the same car you've had for 6 years, because selling it would prompt a question, and buying a new one would prompt a different question, and you are so tired of managing questions. Lena cancels lunch. She texts, "Something came up," and you know that something is a wire transfer, or a closing, or a flight to somewhere she won't name. And you understand, and you don't mind. And you also realize that even Lena, the one person you thought understood, doesn't know the real number. Nobody does. Whitfield knows the structure. Lena knows the lifestyle. Keisha knows the silence. Your mother knows the fiction. But nobody knows all of it. Nobody holds the whole picture. And you realize, sitting in this parking garage, engine off, hands on the wheel, that you have built an entire life on an omission. The people who love you love a version of you that doesn't exist anymore. The woman who splits the check. The woman who says, I had some saved. The woman who drives the same car and wears the same jacket and lives in the same apartment. That woman is a character you wrote, and you've been performing her so long you forgot when the performance started. You cry. Not the way you cried on the kitchen floor after Donna's mortgage. That was relief. This is something else. This is the specific grief of getting everything you wanted and having no one to tell. This is the sound your voice makes in a concrete parking garage when there's nobody to hear it. Flat, echoless, absorbed by walls that don't care. How are you? You're fine. $15 million. The Thai restaurant hasn't changed. The vinyl booth still has tape on the left side. The TV still plays something unidentifiable. The pendant lamp still buzzes, and the light still flickers twice every few minutes like a pulse. Keisha is across from you. She's talking about her sister's wedding, about the florist who overcharged, about the DJ who played the wrong song during the first dance. Her fork clicks against the plate, and the sound is the same sound it's been for 12 years of Tuesdays in this booth. She doesn't know. She will never know. And you have made your peace with that, not all at once, not in a single moment of clarity, but slowly, the way your money came. Slowly, like silt settling at the bottom of something still. You are not going to tell her. Not tonight, not ever. Not because you don't trust her, you trust Keisha with everything you have except this, but because telling her would change the one thing that money hasn't touched. This booth. This plate, this fork, this friendship that has never once been about what either of you has. Your phone buzzes in your bag. You don't reach for it. You don't turn it over. You don't check the number. You want the last piece? Keisha asks, pointing her fork at the plate. Go ahead. She takes it. She always takes the last piece. She has taken the last piece for 12 years, and she has never once felt guilty about it, because between the two of you, there has never been a reason to feel guilty about a spring roll. You leave the restaurant, and the night air is warm, and the street smells like rain that hasn't come yet, and Keisha says, "Same time next week?" And you say, "Yeah." And she walks to her car, and you walk to yours, and you sit in the driver's seat, and you don't cry this time. You open your phone. A notification sits on the screen. Green, the same shade of green from the drive-thru years ago. You read the number. You lock the phone. You set it face down on the passenger seat. You start the engine. You pull into a drive-thru 3 blocks away. Same chain, same crackle on the speaker. Number 4 combo. No tomato, high C if they have it, Sprite if they don't. $6.49. The car behind you doesn't honk this time. You pull forward. You take your bag. You drive home. The roads are empty and the radio is off, and the silence isn't loud anymore. It's just yours. It's always been yours. And somewhere between the first 100,000 and the 15th million, you stopped needing it to belong to anyone else. Some freedoms come with their own kind of cage. You chose this one. You'd choose it again. You're fine.